Well, here we are in a country now filled with people that can't recognize the truth at all. We're filled with a country that it would rather eat each other than actually listen to reason. There is no such thing as common sense anything anymore. There's no such thing as reason anymore. There is nothing left but hatred, it seems. And that is something that this audience has to avoid at all cost. That's something that we have to, as quite honestly, as a remnant of this country, hold together and hold fast on. We have to find the principles that do matter. We have to find people that we might disagree with, but we can stand together with. We are being separated by conspiracy theories, by disinformation, out and out lies, money, power. When you talk about the Boston Marathon, something that should have brought us together, something that we've never seen before in the streets of America. We have never seen people blown up in our streets like they blow them up in the Middle East. We've never seen that. We've never seen legs and arms blown off in the streets. And now we don't even know what's true. Now we have no idea. Now we have a president and a press willing to go along with it, saying that this is just a religious extremism. This is just a problem with religion. This has nothing to do with Islamic extremism. Islamic extremism doesn't exist. These were religious extremists. What is the difference between Islamic extremism and isn't one just a little more focused? I mean, we're not talking about, a universal faith that made these people do this, that turned them into jackals. We're talking about one religion. One religion. In this particular case, one religion. This is an easy way to have your cake and eat it too. This is one really simple way, and I'm wondering when America is going to turn it off. When America is going to not feel relief when you watch this stuff on television, and so you say, I'm not going to watch it anymore. And I highly recommend it. I do not recommend that you unplug. You have to know what's going on. You have to be involved. But I highly recommend you stop listening to the merchants of disinformation, out and out lies. I'm sorry that I wish we could be farther along on the Blaze. I wish there were others that would join us. I wish there were those who had a sense of time, that had a sense of history, that had a sense of what's worth fighting for, what's worth standing for, what's worth dying for. But Americans, generally speaking, at least those in the press and I think in the new media, are so into self-glorification, self-gratification, and those who aren't just think that freedom is the natural state. So if we just reset this thing, it will go into, naturally, of course, freedom. No, it won't. No, I'm sorry that the natural state of man is barbarism. The natural state of man is slavery. The natural state of man is survival of the fittest. Not freedom, not justice, not equality, but slavery. We now live in a world where our president has told us that that a Muslim who won't even shave his beard, who goes into our military base and starts opening up gunfire and just shoots a bunch of our soldiers while screaming Allah Akbar is just a workplace incident. We are told by our president that we have an ambassador that has been shot. Our president isn't even involved. He's called me in the morning. A battle that rages on all night. People outside screaming Allah Akbar. Clearly Al-Qaeda. While we were running guns to the Muslim Brotherhood through Turkey into Syria. And we have a president that says, well, that's because of a movie. That's because of a movie that somebody made. And, the internet's just irresponsible. Allah Akbar. Two of them have something in common here, Mr. President. I don't know if you noticed this. And now this one they can't avoid. This one is religious extremism. Not Muslim terrorism, not jihad, because jihad, we know, is a holy struggle. It's jihad means my struggle. Well, so did Mein Kampf. But I believe that we admitted that there were Nazis. I believe we admitted that that wasn't just some idea that was just perverted. That was a perverse idea. If we couldn't have named the Nazis, we could have never defeated them. If we can't name Islamic extremists, we can never defeat them. Because we can never identify them. You won't know the difference between a jihadist and a Catholic priest. Well, they're all the same anyway, aren't they? Really? We have a president who says, let's not jump to conclusion. And yet here's the same guy who has been telling us, well, the police acted stupidly. Well, those teabaggers. He'll meet with Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. He'll meet with Hugo Chavez. But he won't meet with Tea Party people. No. They're extremists. Labeled by him, they're extremists. We have now a country that is so wrapped up inside of itself that it doesn't even see the difference. It doesn't even see the comedy show that's going on. That a pressure cooker has now been deemed a weapon of mass destruction. Well, I got news for you. If a pressure cooker is a weapon of mass destruction, well, then George W. Bush certainly was right for going into Iraq. How'd that happen? We're not fighting terror, but it seems like terror came to our streets. It's definitely not Al-Qaeda. Have you heard about the two guys that were arrested in Canada? They wanted to blow up the train yesterday. Or how about the two guys that they just arrested, Al-Qaeda members in Spain? But I thought Al-Qaeda was dead. I thought Al-Qaeda was over. And by the way, the Spain, the Boston bombings, and definitely the bombings in Canada, or the attempted bombings, those had nothing to do with each other. This is nothing to do with one another. These are just separate experiences. They're just experiencing life a little differently than you are. But diversity is good. And so the media decides to take the most untrustworthy group of people I have ever seen in my life. They decide to take their word over the word of trusted sources. Let me go to John King. John King comes out and says, well, they use different language, but I'm going to call them a dark-skinned male. Why is he calling them a dark-skinned male? Because he can't say a Saudi. He can't say an Islamic terrorist. He can't say an Arab. That's why. They used other words, but I won't because they're deemed offensive. Well, what words are deemed offensive in this? A Muslim Arab terrorist. That's why. So now you have the FBI telling a source that we have a guy. He's ready to go. We know who he is because we know who was labeled that afternoon under the Patriot Act, Section 2123B, impossible. It takes hours to make this case in front of a panel of judges. It takes hours. You have to have evidence. Well, they had it. They went to the guy's house. They spent 9 hours in his house. They spent 5 hours with his roommates. By the way, has anybody checked with the FBI to see if those roommates are legal? I wonder if any of those guys have overstayed their visa. I wonder how come, if that's true, nobody's reported that. I wonder why nobody's even looking into that. Instead, what we have is a media that dutifully reports everything that the Department of Homeland Security says. Hello, 1984. George Orwell, is that you? In the meantime, we have another shadow media that is trying to tell you that you can't trust the mainstream media, but you can trust them. And how do you know you can trust them? Because they're going to show you how the entire bombing in Boston was a complete fraud. That this didn't even happen. These were actors. Oh, my gosh. So, America, you are going to two places. You've got two choices. You've got the people who are in bed with Big Brother and are telling you things that you know are not true. Oh, no, this is just religion. It's definitely not Islamic terror. Or, because you know that's not true, you go all the way to the other end of the spectrum, and Americans flood over to it didn't even happen at all. If we don't start recognizing reason, in my career, I have had my gut to go on. In my career, we have done our homework, we have done our research. When I told you about the caliphate, I had some good research behind it, but I didn't have any smoking gun. And really what I had was my gut. I knew what was happening. But I didn't have a smoking gun. We have a smoking gun. We have the documents. We have 6 congressmen who have seen them. We have like 10 different top-level high sources. This is Watergate stuff. Nobody reports it. In fact, one source, who, if you were listening yesterday, you know exactly who it was, one source decides to print some of it, and then, as soon as that is printed, and we mention it, it's gone. It's pulled. Why is that? Somebody should ask the reporter, how do you feel about that? You had several sources. You had multiple sources. Why did your network pull that off? Why is that? Well, it would probably be because the FBI or the Department of Homeland Security would tell you to pull it off, for security reasons. Or maybe you have somebody else in line that is pressuring and telling you to keep the news off the air. I don't know what it is. Sure would be interesting, though, wouldn't it? But there you go down a rabbit hole. Wow, it's a conspiracy. No, you see, America, it's not that hard to figure out what's conspiracy and what's not. You look at the patterns of people. Is this pattern of this government to take responsibility, to tell you the truth on what's really going on? Or is the pattern of this government to tell you, you got to sign it before you figure out what's in it? Is the pattern of this government to throw people under the bus that do not agree with them while they hide the things that they've really done? For instance, how many doctors have you ever met that have cut the feet off of patients for $30,000? And that's why we have to have universal health care. How many doctors have you ever read about that? Now, that's, of course, because those doctors disagreed with universal health care. But those who agree with abortion, how many doctors do you know in the last just few months that have come up, that actually have jars of feet of patients? Jars of feet of not just patients, babies in their office. I don't even know why, just because they like them. Yeah, that's just a jar of feet that I cut off from all the kids. Well, I can name one. But how come the media is not reporting on that? How come that doctor is not as bad as the fictitious doctor that was cutting off feet for diabetes? Where's the pattern here? Did Fort Hood, was that Islamic terrorism? Or was that a workplace? Benghazi, was that because of the film, or was that Islamic terrorism? The Boston bombing, is that just a couple of crazy kids, or is that Islamic terrorism? Is Canada, they're Al-Qaeda members, and now Madrid, that's Al-Qaeda. Is Al-Qaeda done? Or is Al-Qaeda still around? I wonder which is which. You're going to have to decide. I've made my decision, and I would suggest that we stop arguing with each other and we find people that maybe we disagree with, but we can still see the light of day. We can still see the light of truth. We can still see who we are and what the truth is of what happens to our country if we fly apart and we don't trust anything. We've got to trust something. And that's something has to be based in fact and has to be based in common sense. We'll get to some of the conspiracy theories that are just amazing coming up in just a second. So yeah, I wonder if there was anybody ever in the administration that said that they should do this. Oh yeah, that's right, Cass Sunstein. This is exactly what he said that they should do. Why would you do that? Why? Unless you're trying to destroy us.